Welcome back, you sons of pitches. It's part 2 of episode 7, our mid-season review. The last time we did Premier League and the Serie A. Now we're going into the Portuguese League, La Liga, Bundesliga, and Ligue 1. It's going to be a banging episode. Make sure you're keeping up with all our latest episodes, and let's get right into it.
Let's move, Nate, to your native Portugal. What do you say?
Absolutely. I think there's not a whole lot to say about the top 4 finish. I think it's going to be pretty typical of the usual suspects, except I do think there's one little sneak peek that has been playing pretty well. And actually, they just played a match recently. They drew the points. Victoria Guimarães and Braga are going to be fighting for that 4th spot. And I think Porto just haven't been good enough. And I think just they're still in the the Champions League. And they do have Arsenal in the Champions League. And we did say Arsenal's falling off, so I had said that they might sneak past them. Everybody kind of gave me crap for it. But with Arsenal kind of not playing as well, Porto are not really playing that well. I think that game opens up a little bit more. And the more games they have towards the end of the season, the more I think they'll slip. So I think it's a 2-horse race, kind of similar to Italy. I'm a little biased, obviously. I'm confident in Sporting's ability to be. I think with a player like Gyökeres, we'll get to obviously my top 5. I think Gyökeres has just been the player of the season. I think there's nobody that can even touch him at the moment. And I think if he continues form, Sporting have been adamant that he's not going anywhere in January. I think 6 months in a club, you'd be crazy. I think we've only seen like Enzo Fernandez do it. And look what happens. You just clearly just shit the bed in that first season. So yeah, I think it's going to be between Sporting and Benfica. I think it's going to go a lot of games. I think Sporting have a good amount of tough games at home, which is nice to have that advantage. As far as teams going down, it looks like Chaves and Vizela are already going down. The Portuguese league at the bottom half of the table, it's always tight. It's always a couple. It all just depends on how well they play against the top 3. All they play against each other. If they can sneak points where they can't. So it's not always all that interesting, but it does get mixed up a lot, and it's usually pretty tight until the last leg. I don't know if you guys have any questions about the league per se. There's a lot of interesting teams in there, but I think it's just going to be the usual suspects at the top of the league.
Yeah. Not too many questions, but I actually did want to kind of give you a confidence boost. I'm not sure where you stand on if you think Sporting will go on to win the league, but what I do think is that they do have the best player in the league right now, Gyökeres, who the reports that I've seen show no signs of him leaving as well. And what I wanted to say is I think the Sporting team's going to get better. They have 3 really good young center backs, and like you were saying an episode ago, they haven't all had the chance to play together. It remains to be seen how the chemistry will be and if they mesh. And the reason why I kind of favor Sporting here, not only because they're only in first place already, but I think Benfica have a lot of question marks in their team. Like they have makeshift fullbacks. Obviously, they have no real number 9. We're not sure who is the main man, who is the talisman. Now, they've made a couple signings in January. We'll see if someone like Marcos Leonardo, how quick of an impact he's going to make, if he's even going to be a part of the team right away. Who knows? We'll see if he can get adjusted. But I actually really like Sporting's chances. I'm a little surprised it's only a 1-point gap, to be honest.
I was going to say, I think it directly kind of compares to how I view the Serie A right now. So I think Juve's flame will burn out just like Benfica as well. I don't think they'll be able to last in the title race. I think Sporting will run away with it just like Inter does. Because I do think, I've watched only a handful of games and obviously listening to Nate talk, I do think they do have the best team in the Portuguese league. I mean, like you said, you kind of expect the top 4 to always remain the same in different order.
Yeah.
And it's always a dogfight with them. And who can beat who is really it. They're all derby matches because they all hate each other. So that's why it's a very entertaining league to watch. But I do think it reminds me a lot of the Serie A. So I do think Sporting will run away with it.
Yeah,
I agree 100%. I think that's a great point too you make, Pat, because I think the impact Gyökeres makes for Sporting is very reminiscent of the impact that Lautaro makes for Inter. And I think that Gyökeres is the type of player that nobody else in that top 4 title race in the Portuguese league has. I don't think Porto, I don't think Benfica or Braga can really stand up and say they have a guy that can score goals and can make goals like Gyökeres does. Maybe Benfica have that now, and Marcos Leonardo, I can say he's someone that I was really interested in and was hoping that he would come to Roma. I know they've been struggling to find someone.
Braga does have the player, though. They do have Banza, but we'll see how long he can
Braga
go. He's been fantastic too.
And actually, Braga's style of play is something that is very intriguing to me. I'd like to see more of. Definitely. So it'll be interesting to see where they go and how they kick on. That's for sure. But I think, personally, Sporting for me have to be the favorites. Just on the fact alone that they have an absolute world class difference maker in Gyökeres.
Yeah, I think Banza. Speaking of Banza, he's a great goal scorer, and he's strong. He's a huge presence. But Braga are going to struggle because he's on a 4-match suspension right now. Only 3 games of that left. So that's going to be extremely tough for Braga going into that top 4 competition, that fight. My thing, so I do love that was dope. I do love that you guys are backing me all the way for the Sporting title. And I do agree. I think if Sporting win the title, if they do, it's solely down on just Victor Gyökeres continuing that difference, because I think the rest of the team is still performing on similar levels that they have recently. We recently won the league and finished 3rd and 2nd. So they're all pretty much still balling on that same level. He's really making that difference, and if he continued to do so, I think we can be really confident. It's the thing that Benfica, like I think Marcos Leonardo is a fantastic player. He's a fantastic young athlete, young player, and if he can produce right away for Benfica, it's a scary thought. And I think they are targeting 2 different left backs. They have a first choice and a backup, which would solve their little fullback issue. And if they can both perform, so I think Benfica has been clearly more active, I think, as they should be than Sporting, because Sporting clearly have a formula that works for them currently. Benfica have clearly got the points and the results, but it's not always pretty. So they've been more active in the transfer window. So I think it's going to go a lot down in how well their transfers then perform in the latter half of the season. But I think it's Sporting titles to lose right now, I think, is the best way to describe it. And they're just going to have to go from there. Just quickly, not to bore you guys with all the players in the league, for a goalkeeper, I think it's up between Trubin, who Benfica have the best defensive record, and I think he's been phenomenal for them. I hyped him up to my cousins who are Benfica fans, and they weren't so sure about him at first, but then he started to really get comfortable. He had a rough patch.
Jason wasn't so sure about him either, but he's a name that I had heard about a lot. I watched the U21 Euros over the summer as well, something I always liked taking in, and Trubin was unbelievable.
Yeah.
I mean, he looks to be ahead of his years. He has presence in the goal as well.
Mm-hmm.
He did start out pretty rough. I remember Jason would probably be chiming in here because he was definitely complaining for a little while, but yeah, he's been pretty good.
Jason will be upset. I'll put him on blast because Jason, before this even started, we can check the group chat, we check the logs. He said that Benfica had an 85% chance to win the league, which was crazy looking at halfway through, and they're a point behind. But, it is what it is. Hindsight's a beautiful thing. The only other competition is the Moreirense keeper, who Moreirense have been playing phenomenal. But I'm just going to give it to Trubin, household name, number 1 for Ukraine, above Real Madrid's current makeshift goalkeeper right now. Defender would either have to be a Benfica player or a Sporting player for me. I think Porto just having.
Ignacio.
I think Ignacio takes it too. It was Ignacio or Diomande for me because I think they're both Inacio has been getting on the score sheet, which is obviously like, in the numbers like favors him as a defender. But I also think Diomande has been absolutely solid defensively in terms of defensive actions. And even though Benfica have only conceded 10, I just don't think Antonio Silva and Otamendi, I think credit to their ability, have reached the same levels as they did last season. And I think that's a credit to their own standards. But yeah, I think Diomande for me would be defender of the season so far. In the midfield, I'm gonna go ahead and give it to a Benfica player, dude, João Neves. We've heard Jay talk about him tirelessly, and as a city rival, like I'm just happy he's Portuguese because he's a phenomenal player. I can't wait to see what his career brings. Guy looks like he never gets tired. He has ability on the ball. He fights, even though he's little. He puts up a physical presence. I think he's fantastic. I don't know if you guys have been able to catch any games of his.
Not much. No. Is he? What type of midfielder is he? Is he more box to box? Does he like to go forward, or is he Renato Sanchez type dynamic center midfielder, or what kind of profile?
I closest would be like if calling him a Bernardo Silva regen in a sense. I think they got that same tireless work rate, drift wide occasionally, come in.
Actually, I mean, I've seen him a little bit up from the Benfica games I've seen in the Champions League and whatnot. He reminds me a little bit of Barella in the way he plays a little bit. I don't know if you would agree with that or not, Nate, but I feel like I see a little bit of Barella in his game.
I'd have to. I can't say I've watched enough of Barella to make that comparison. I know he's a top midfielder, and I think João Neves has that caliber. Jon Snow, as we like to call him. Yeah, for me, of players that I've seen enough to compare him to, I think Bernardo Silva is pretty close. And I think not Sanchez. Renato Sanchez is like one of a kind. Even though he hasn't lived up his potential, I still think he's a unique player. But yeah, João Neves has just top quality. He also plays some insane balls from about half field. So I think he has a lot of potential. And so I think he's an easy shot for that midfield position. And then forward is just a wrap. I mean, Victor Gyökeres has just been absolutely top tier, destroying teams. He makes the Portuguese league look easy. I think he'll go to the Prem. I think my boy Pat over there should be looking at him come summertime. You should give what's the Ineos group a little call, because I think he'd be a great fit up top. And then as far as a flex,
he passes the ball better than Haaland, so
for sure. And as far as a flex, I actually credit where it's due. I think I want to give it to a Braga player, because a Braga, like G is. Yeah, it has to either be Banza or a Horta for me. But I'll give it to Banza, because I think he's been phenomenal. And he's going to miss a couple games, like we just said, with suspension. And I bet you he still sits at that contention for top goal scorer. But yeah, that about wraps it up. Now we have our leagues that we have less of a stake in. We'll start with La Liga, a league that used to have a much more a deeper presence in football, with El Clasico being much better than I think it is now. How do we feel about who wins that in the top three or four?
I think this is very similar to Italy in terms of being a two-horse race. I think it's going to be pretty much between Girona and Real Madrid right to the end. Girona are doing their best to channel their inner Leicester City. It's actually, statistically, it's kind of fucking impressive if you think about what they're doing this season. It's actually insane. I mean, at this point last season, actually, let me correct myself here. By the end of last season, they had finished in 10th place with 49 points. Okay. We are just about halfway through the La Liga season. They have 48 right now, which is absolutely absurd. And not to mention, this is only their third top flight season. Like, not many, if any, of these players have experience at this level. I don't think this coach really has experience at this level. And to see them keep doing this week in and week out, I mean, look at the game they just won last week against Atletico Madrid. And that to win in that fashion, I mean, that is championship caliber, in my opinion. to hold off that amount of pressure, to be comfortably favorites to win the game at halftime, and then be played off the pitch in the second half, and then still find the result. I think that has every makings of a team that can go on and win a championship. And I think that when they play each other, which is actually I think in a few weeks, round 24, that's going to be very crucial in deciding which way the title goes in La Liga. Barcelona, I think they're out of the title fight already. I've actually been pretty disappointed with Barcelona this season, all things considered. I know they kind of have a lot of injuries, but Real Madrid also have a lot of injuries, especially in defense. And I think there's been a real drop off in Barcelona this season. I got to ask a lot of questions where it comes from. I think Pedri and Gavi might actually be a lot better and more important to this Barcelona team than a lot of people realized. And I think that they're really, really missing that right now because they look all over the place when I watch them play. Like they don't press really effectively, especially from the midfield, which is where Gavi and Pedri would be most influential, in my opinion. And in terms of their defensive shape, I mean, they just sit off. Like they are so lackadaisical. They will let you do whatever you want. You can have a field day and attack no matter what the team is. It could be Las Palmas. It could be Almeria, who pretty much almost took a win off Barcelona, and they haven't won all season. So, I don't know. I have to say I'm really disappointed with Barcelona this season. I can't see them even scratching close to the front, too. I don't know about you guys.
I think the front... honestly, I think the league's done. I think Real Madrid's going to win the league. I'm going to be honest. Girona has been fun to watch for half a season. I'm not entirely sure that they'll continue their form, but there is a pretty fun top four race. It'd be pretty cool if Athletic Bilbao snuck in there. They're in there right now on goal difference. They've been in good form. Atletico Madrid obviously have European games to play. I think Atletico Madrid personally is going to make a little Champions League run. So yeah, I think there's a little bit of an interesting top four race in La Liga, but it's not a league that I watch a lot of. I have absolutely nothing to offer for the relegation fight, opinion-wise. But in terms of the top of the table, I think it's gonna be Real Madrid. I mean, can any of us rather confidently say they think Girona is gonna win La Liga?
No.
I can't say with confidence. I like to just play devil's advocate and just kind of throw caution to the wind with opinions. But the only thing I like about Girona is just the fact that they've somehow managed to maintain being the top goal-scoring team in the league, despite
It's insane.
Which is crazy. You know what I mean? So
it's quite insane.
So I think it really does depend on how much Girona have left to offer for the remaining 19 games or so. It's gonna be really tough for them, I think. But obviously they've shown that they've played every team once, and they can do it for half the season. And I have to agree that I think Barcelona haven't been up to scratch, and I don't think they're going to push to the top. So I think it just depends on whether or not Girona can keep form and whether or not Real Madrid have anything to offer at that point of the season.
They're missing Alaba. You know, they have players missing. And they lose Benzema, which is even crazier.
Yeah, and I think if they're...
Wait,
let me just make one quick...
Can I pause you guys real quick? So,
yeah.
You guys all just lagged again, so I just kept talking for a bit. So, Pat, whatever point you just made and finished with Alaba, restart that, and then Ange bounce on him, and then we'll go.
So, restart the entire point?
I didn't hear any. You guys froze. Just say whatever you said about Real Madrid's Alaba. Yeah.
Because I could hear him.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's on me, but I kept talking to try to cover it, and then now I can edit it. So go.
So I think it's funny that Real Madrid and Girona have the same exact record heading into the second half of the season. Like Nate said, I mean Girona is the leading goal scoring team in La Liga, which is predominantly I like to think a defensive league. But then you take a look at Madrid's bench. I mean injuries. I'm sorry. You have Courtois missing. You have Mendy missing. You have Alaba missing. I mean, we're talking about some really key starters, and if those guys are playing, I mean, it's almost like would they have lost the game? Would they have drawn those three? Is there a difference?
Right.
Does Courtois make some mistakes? It's very interesting to see that they're at this stage and turn. But to answer your point, I don't think Girona is going to have enough gas left in the tank. As many goals as they scored, I think maybe they're going to run out. The only thing that I can see is Real Madrid get a little too Europe focused and slip a couple points in the league, and Girona only have one competition to really focus on, and they push and make that Leicester dream come true. I like to watch Barca play a little bit. So to G's point about Pedri and Gavi, I do think that they're missing them heavily. As I'm not a big fan of Gavi, I think he's a little nutcracker. He's a dirty bastard. Runs up and down the field all game. So but he's a utility player. He plays center mid, left mid. He can play left wing. He's all over the place. So if you look at their midfield, we have De Jong, Sergio Roberto, and Gundogan. We're talking really two slower possession midfielders, and then De Jong, who is like a magician. So without Pedri and Gavi kind of running up and down, pushing as much as they usually do, I think that's limiting a lot of their chances in ball carrying ability with those two guys, and I think that's really what they're missing. Because the front three hasn't changed; it's the same. So it's interesting to see, especially with Cancelo being there. The center backs are the same. Everything kind of is the same. Ter Stegen's obviously injured, but
I think taking a step back though. I don't know how you feel about that, but especially like I watched this last game. He was like a shadow of his former self. I mean, he was arguing with his teammates. He was getting frustrated with himself. Like I don't know. That's just really not the Lewandowski that I've known for the last probably decade now. So that was a little discouraging to see. But I thought Vitor Roque came on and looked kind of impressive. So maybe it'll light a fire under Lewandowski's ass.
Yeah, world-class striker like that, he's going to have his days. But, I think he's missing Pedri. I think Pedri is pretty integral in the team. So, obviously, Gundogan's filling in the best as he can. They're lucky to have even gotten him on the free. You're talking about City's captain and one of their players of the season last year, and then he goes to Barca, and, he's filling in for injuries. Because, to be honest, I would be playing Gavi and Pedri over Gundogan just because of the style that I think they need to play in Spain. And hang in the league like that. And to Ange, your earlier point, I would like to see Bilbao finish in the top four.
Be sick.
We don't really get to see that often, and
no.
Hopefully Sociedad can maybe stop drawing so many games and pick up some points, and they'll be right there too because I'm a big fan of a couple of their players.
Yeah,
there's you can go.
I like both those points. When I was taking my notes down on what's going on so far this season. Bilbao and Sociedad are both teams that I've highlighted so far, and specifically with Bilbao, the Williams brothers, Inaki and Nico, they've been fantastic this season. Inaki's got 8 goals and 3 assists. Nico's got 3 goals and 5 assists from the other side. They've also been fantastic at home. They've only lost 1 game this season, and that 1 loss came to Real Madrid. So I definitely tip them as well to give a good fight in the chase for Europe. And Sociedad, I agree. I would like to see them go and do that as well, but I think it's going to be difficult for them considering they have their Champions League obligation. Of course, they did draw PSG, so it's going to be a very tough tie for them. But depending on their commitments moving forward in the rest of the season, I do agree. I think that they could also be in there for the fight. I know they're 6 points off right now, but I think they could definitely give at least Atletico Madrid and Bilbao and Barcelona a run for their money. That's for sure.
Got that right.
Yeah, that was well said. I don't really have too much else to add based on La Liga. So I'm good to jump to to what next? The Bundesliga? Should we transition?
I guess.
I like that.
Yeah, I think just a shout
Or
out.
five-a-side, rather.
Yeah, we can do
we'll
a quick
our
one.
five-a-side.
We can do a quick one. Obviously, less of our eyes are on all of these matches. A keeper to shout out. I mean,
yeah. For me, it's pretty easy. I've actually been keeping a pretty good eye on La Liga this season, so there's a couple good keepers that have caught my eye. Mamardashvili is one that's impressed me a lot at Valencia. Georgian keeper, pretty good there, but he's not my shout. I have to give it to Lunin. I know we talked about him earlier, and Trubin, his Ukrainian compatriot, but I have to give it to Lunin just based on the fact that he's really not ever established himself in this Real Madrid team. I know he's always had great goalkeepers in front of him for the time that he's been there, and Courtois is never a goalkeeper that you're going to take his job from. But they never rated him enough to keep him in the team, and they brought in a goalkeeper to replace Courtois when he got hurt, and Lunin took that job from Kepa. So I think for the first half of the season, I think for that reason, my shout has to go to Andre Lunin. And I also think he's played well. I think he's been fantastic too. So
he's my
no doubt
number two choice to interrupt there. He's my two.
Who do you give it to?
Unai Simon, I think, for me, has been my keeper so far for La Liga. I've watched Bilbao play a couple times, and I always liked him. I think he's a good keeper. I think he's had a standout season so far, especially with where Bilbao is in the table. They're not there without him. That's for sure. So they've conceded a low number of goals too. It's a really solid keeper for me.
Yeah, definitely a great shot. He's Spain's number one for a reason. So
yeah, 9 clean sheets.
I agree.
9 clean sheets from 19 games, which is pretty impressive. Yeah, I think in terms of solidifying a spot, I think Lunin. I think in terms of importance, be able to fill in in the Real Madrid's number one spot, but then he's only played 8 games, so I think Unai Simon playing essentially the entire season. Yep, he has.
I like Unai Simon. I can't argue with that. I think it's a good shout.
Fantastic. I know, Pat, you mentioned makeshift defenses and injuries to defenses like at our Real Madrid. Any of them the defender of the season, or do you have someone else?
So I was actually going to save Tuchumeni for my flex because I think he's had a good season and he's played both defender and CDM. So I would say no. I think my defender so far this season is Daley Blind.
Very good.
I think I'm always going to go with that veteran center back. You guys know how I am. So I think him being in there. We've spoken enough about him on the podcast. He's my solidified pick for defenseman.
I'm very happy you said that.
Yeah, I was looking at the team sheets as well, to be honest, and the only other name that really jumps off the paper to me is Jan Kutu, also of Girona. I just love the way he bombs up and down the wing. I think he's going to be a savvy little signing for whoever team inevitably picks him up. He's still really young, 21 years old, Brazilian. Maybe he makes a run at that squad. I've liked a lot of his game. But I'm fine with Daley Blind. I actually wanted him to be in the team. I was hoping that's what Patrick had to say.
Yeah.
I agree. I have to go with Daley Blind too. I like the Jan Kutu pick, but I kind of classify him as a midfielder almost, given the way that they line up. But yeah, I do like Daley Blind for the defender, 100%.
Yeah, I think he just contributes so much on and off the field to that Girona team that he just has to be there. Jan Kutu, who's going to go back from loan, to Man City. I wonder if he'll break the team there, if he'll get a move again. But for midfielder, not unfortunately, because I love him, but I just don't think there's even a conversation to be had at who was the best midfielder so far.
No. Yeah,
this season.
There's not.
Even though there's a lot of cool names to be thrown, but Bellingham.
Yeah, it has to be a Jude.
Yeah, it has to be Jude.
Nobody else.
There's nobody else. There was a lot of good other midfielders in these top couple teams that I think deserved a special mention, but no, Jude Bellingham by far was the best player. Yeah, I think we will get to that point. As far as forwards, I want to throw a name right out there. I don't know if anybody will agree with me, but I think Girona striker Artem Dovbyk has been phenomenal and has been, like I mentioned earlier, they're the best scoring team. I think he's a huge role in that. Has 16 direct goal contributions of their 46.
No, yeah, he's the pick for me too. I think he's the runaway pick, to be honest. I think Rodrigo has been pretty good in Vinicius Jr.'s absence, but with that being said, Vinicius Jr. was absent for a little while. We haven't seen the best of Robert Lewandowski, which is unfortunate because he is one of the better strikers this decade. Yeah, I'm all in on Artem Dovbyk. I think it has to be Dovbyk for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think there's
You
an
talk
argument.
about another player though who scores and creates. I mean, we just talked about Mr. Victor himself in Sporting. So another player who just kind of that natural 9 who can score and pass. Man, it seems like they're coming back. So
yeah, I hope they do. I hope they do.
The other name I wanted to. Well, I just wanted to show love to one more player. I think Gianluca. I bet this is the name you had written down. I think. Honestly, I've never really been his biggest fan, but I think Antoine Griezmann has seen a bit of a renaissance. I think he's been really good this season. I think he's going to make a case for a flex spot. But yeah, I gotta have Dovbyk at striker.
Yeah, I think
agree,
Griezmann's a great shout, but I want to hear G's.
Griezmann, yeah, I actually have a couple shouts out. I just wanted to hear your take on these guys, but I did have Griezmann written down. He wasn't up there for me, but I have to respect. He's had a fantastic season so far. I agree. Morata as well for Atletico Madrid. I think he's been pretty impressive.
No.
As much as I fucking can't really stand him, I have to give credit where credit is due. But the one player who I think is very slept on for the forward position and has actually outscored Dovbyk, Borja Mayoral, has scored 12 goals for Getafe. I give him his flowers. Former Roma boy. I thought he was fantastic for us. The one season he spent on loan. I expected him to go on and do more than he has in his career. And he's playing probably in a team that's not really rated highly in Spain. But I think to bag 12 goals is no mean feat at all. So I think he deserves at least a shout-out at the minimum.
Yeah, definitely deserves a shout-out. The only other forward, too, I think Inaki Williams has been pretty good the couple games that I've watched.
I was just going to throw his name. Yeah.
I have a quick question, too. What position do we classify Savio? Because I think he deserves a mention as well.
I think he's one of those midfielders that unfortunately just gets outshone.
Or a winger.
Yeah.
Either way, he doesn't go over Dovbyk.
He's not gonna make our flex spot either. Yeah. I can tell you that now.
A person who by direct goal contributions might not even pique your interest, but I think has been a key player for our title contenders. Girona has been Alex Garcia. I think he's absolutely pivotal, absolutely vital for them in the midfield.
Is he your flex pick? Because he's mine.
Yeah, so. I think he might just be my flex pick. Even though Antoine Griezmann, again, like you said, great goal contributions, has been returning to his prime at Atleti because he just didn't show it at Barca. And Inaki was good too, but I think Alex Garcia is my flex pick all day.
Yeah, it's between Griezmann and him for me. What do you guys think, Patrick and Gianluca? Do you have any other names that you wanted to show love to, or is it kind of wrapped up?
I'll give you guys that, but I gotta show love to Mr. Chuchimeni, man. I'm a big believer in the multi player. I really do think I mean, you go and get somebody for that amount of money, play one position, okay, great. He's out here playing center back. I get it. CDMs play center back sometimes. It's no big deal. But for a title contending team, first place, I mean, he's doing about as good as Eder Militao, Alaba. Doesn't matter who you pick back there. He's making it look good, and he's playing great. So I just wanted to shout him out.
Yeah, he definitely has big cleats to fill.
Yeah. Not gonna show on the score sheet, but just gonna make that impact. I mean, he's a big boy back there, man. And I was a fan of him. I was hoping that we would have grabbed him, but I think he's outstanding right now.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I thought you were gonna say Cubo from Real Sociedad. Think he's
good. I'm glad somebody said him. I think he's been playing pretty good too.
Yeah, I think he's such a great player. I don't know
I
if he
do.
gets in on the
I,
flex, but I think he's a great player.
I like I do like the Alex Garcia pick for the flex, but I have to say I think it's outrageous that we're not considering Savio more because I mean the guy's got 5 goals and 5 assists. That's no mean feat for a guy of his age in La Liga. So I think if we're gonna give Alex Garcia a shout, I think Savio deserves just as much of a shout in my opinion.
I think
I agree with
Actually,
you.
I'm
He can have a shout. He's just not on the team,
And actually,
unfortunately.
honestly, there's a lot of players that are contributing to this team to this Girona side. Like in my opinion, Stuani off the bench gets a shout for flex in my opinion because the goals and the moments that he's provided off the bench for them. I mean, look at the impact he made for them against Barcelona alone. That 20 minutes. I mean,
Yeah.
that's a difference that not really any player can make. So I think that he's another one that, in my opinion, deserves at least a mention in there. But I think it's hard to argue with Griezmann and Alex Garcia, but
I think
I'm gonna have to go Alex Garcia. I think
Garcia's played every
Yeah.
game for Girona, so I mean,
Yeah.
like
I'm gonna have to go Alex
as
Garcia.
a pivotal minute player. I mean, he's
And,
he
yeah,
is that guy.
purely
for
on
them,
his
really.
influence to the team alone.
yeah,
I like Alex Garcia.
I think just to kind of wrap that whole conversation up and your whole point, G, just the fact that you want to keep mentioning different Girona players just attests to how
Tells you
great
everything
they've been.
about them.
Tells you everything about them. They've had players that had big moments. So I think like you shouted what's his name out for that moment he had.
Wani.
Yeah, exactly. I think just the fact that so many players have had specific moments, and I think Alex Garcia as the flex kind of just represents Girona as a club, as a team. And I think that's just it's a shout into flex that just represents the club as a whole and all the other players we mentioned.
Yeah. What do you say? Let's jump countries now to the Bundesliga because I think the Bundesliga has actually been like really interesting. I think there's a lot of surprising teams that are in surprising positions. If we'll start at the top of the table and move down, obviously Leverkusen being in first place with a little 4-point gap. I know Bayern have a game in hand, so it remains to be seen if Leverkusen will be caught. But they haven't lost a game yet. They're rolling in the Europa League. They don't show any signs of stopping. It looks like they're going to make a run in that good competition. I'd be really shocked if they didn't either A, win the Bundesliga, or B, make at least the semifinal of the Europa League. What do you guys think? Do you think Leverkusen are going to get it done? I do, personally. I think they're going to do it.
Yeah, I back them 100% to be honest. Like we just said about Girona, actually, they have a similar effect on me. Like, there's so many players in this team that I want to talk about. I think Leverkusen might be the team that I look forward to watching the most. Listen to this is outrageous to me. Their left and right back. Grimaldo has 7 goals and 5 assists. That's 12 goals contributions. On the other side, Frimpong has 11. He's got 5 goals and 6 assists. That is absolutely outrageous. And we've only played half of the season. Like, these two guys alone could contribute to more goals than most teams score in a season, which is just outrageous.
Yeah, they've been really good, and I think their ability to create chances from the wide areas and have a brilliant youngster like Florian Wirtz is going to carry them. Now, the news did break today that Victor Boniface is going to miss 5 to 6 weeks, they're saying, with a groin injury. Personally, I think they have a phenomenal deputy at striker and Patrick Schick. I feel like he always tears it up whenever he gets a chance. He had a nice little Euros run a little while back. So I think they might be okay up top. We'll see how they fare without Boniface. But yeah, I've liked a lot of what I've seen from Leverkusen. I don't think there's anyone that can say anything negative about them right now.
I agree. And I mean, they're unbeaten right now, and it's hard. Other than Bayern Munich, I mean, it's hard to see who can beat them at this moment in time.
Yeah.
So I really like I said, I really have been thoroughly enjoying watching them play, and I'm excited to see where they go from here and what they can do. Because I think at this moment in time, they're definitely my favorites to win the Bundesliga, and I think they're a great shot to win the Europa League as well.
Yeah, I think of the 3 leagues that we could argue have a underdog title race contender in Aston Villa, Leverkusen, and Girona, I think Leverkusen have the most in the tank and have the highest chance of fulfilling that role. Yeah,
100%.
Good point.
despite Bayern having Kane, who I've been an admirer of Kane, and I think he deserves a
Me
trophy.
too.
I think he deserves a trophy. I think he's such a phenomenal player. I think he actually goes back to the players we've been talking about, like a real nine who can score and create and be tough and stuff. And I think a player like of his caliber deserves a trophy. And it's going to be crazy the fact that it might not happen in a season.
That'll be so Spursy.
I know in a team like Bayern who have dominated the league, and to lose the first season they have
For
Kane
years.
is going to be insane. But
You know, the crazy thing too about Kane going to the Bundesliga, I don't know if you guys saw this, but he is equal with Lewandowski's number of goals when Lewandowski broke the scoring record in the Bundesliga at this point in the season. They both had 21 goals at the halfway point. So it's actually kind of insane that Harry Kane has adjusted to life in Germany this quickly. In terms of the team overall, though, I have some question marks actually about Bayern Munich, specifically in midfield. Kimmich has been a little suspect for me this season. I know there's been some rumblings that maybe they're willing to let him go, and some other guys, Thomas Muller included. I know. I think Man United's actually been linked to Thomas Muller. I don't know if you have anything to add about that, Pat. But yeah, just some question marks about me. I know a lot of people really like Thomas Tuchel. For me, he doesn't really do it. And I think it's going to be interesting to see what they do in the next coming weeks in the transfer window. Because, I mean, they've been linked with Eric Dyer or Joao Palhinha to come in and fill that role in the midfield. I actually saw today that they're taking over the race now for Radu Dragusin from Genoa. So that'll be interesting to see what happens there. And I know they really do not like Mazraoui at right back. And since they sold Pavard, which I don't think was a very popular decision in Munich, they're on the hunt, and I think they've been making some negotiations for Nordi Mukiele from PSG. So it'll be interesting to see what they do from here. Because I think at this moment in time, I think they're actually the second best squad. I think they need to improve in this winter window if they wanna push Leverkusen to the end.
yeah, I think looks like Pat might want to say something. Pat, you'll appreciate me interrupting you quickly. Speaking of Radu Dragusin, I think we got the best Romano, our transfer news reporter, because dude, Patricio Romano has been nothing but saying the same things over and over again about this very stale and dry transfer of Radu over to Tottenham. So I hope something exciting does happen, so he looks a little silly, because obviously we always look to him for all the news, and he's been a little bit milking this whole Radu thing. So floor over to Patrick, who always gives us the most exciting news when it comes to transfers. How do you feel about the Bundesliga, Pat?
Thanks, Nate. I appreciate it. So I wanted to touch on Leverkusen before I move to Bayern a little bit. So I wanted to touch on G's point about the goals. So I was going to say, just looking at the top three scorers, Leverkusen actually doesn't have one. It's literally such a team effort, and I think they've been fantastic. And to your point about I call him Boniface. Don't know how to pronounce his name, but that's how I say it. Before the last game of Leverkusen season, before their really long break, Patrick Schick had a hat trick. So it just goes to show that their team is just I think it's inevitable. I mean, they have the young Venezuelan kid who actually I'm a pretty big fan of and Henkapié. So I actually think that they have a great team, and they also have Tapsoba off the bench. They have a really good team, and I really do think they have the depth to push Bayern. In response to Bayern, I don't know how they can field this team every week and still be behind Bayern, like Leverkusen. To me, it's like their players are household names, like superstars.
Yeah, I agree.
And they can't get it done. And it to me, it kind of echoes G's point about Tuchel. Yes, Tuchel won the Champions League with Chelsea against Pep. Yes, okay, great, no problem. But to have this team with these players and for Muller to still be your talisman almost in the middle of the park is crazy to me. And no discredit to him. It is great, but I don't know. I want to see more out of Leroy. I don't know. I feel like he's just kind of wasting away a little bit out there. I mean, obviously they have some injuries with Nabry's out, Coleman's out. I do understand, and I'm empathetic. But I mean, even then, you would a man like Tuchel and how much credit they like to give him, and the respect that comes with Bayern Munich and the players that they have. I think that they should be, ahead of Leverkusen, honestly. But that just goes to show that Xabi Alonso is just putting such a great team, and his style of football is clearly taking over Tuchel's in this run, and nothing to take away from Tuchel, but I think Xabi Alonso really deserves his flowers at that point.
Yeah, I think it remains to be seen how long Xabi Alonso will even be at Leverkusen, because surely somebody's going to come snatch him. There's a couple other storylines that I wanted to point out in the Bundesliga that I think are pretty interesting, pretty fun. I know Stuttgart being in third place is definitely unexpected. We'll see if Garassi gets the move that it seems like he wants now at this point. I know there's been some rumors that Milan might trigger his clause in January. So we'll see if they can continue it up. Dortmund being in fifth place is pretty surprising to me. They're kind of falling behind in this top four race. Obviously, they have a good Champions League run, so we'll see where or what basket their eggs lie in. And then the other two things I wanted to highlight is FC Heidenheim coming up from the second Bundesliga and being in ninth is pretty fun. There's only a couple of points that separate those mid-table to relegation teams, but that was somebody or a team rather that I wanted to shout out. And the last point or team I wanted to highlight is Union Berlin being floating right there above the relegation zone. They had a real Cinderella run last season at making it to the Champions League. Obviously, they were dreadful. They never really had a chance in any of the games, and they got bounced pretty quickly out of their European dream. So we'll see if they have a little rebound in the second half of the season with not as many games. But anyone want to touch on any of those or any other points?
Yeah.
The Union Berlin was good. Go ahead, Nate.
Yeah, Union, dude, I was really excited about them. We had a lot of chats about them last year in the group chat.
They seem to be the Brighton of Germany in a way.
Yeah, I was hoping they'd continue, and unfortunately, I think they just couldn't handle the pressure of Europe. I think maybe they achieved too much. You know what I mean? Maybe it would have been better in a lower European competition than the Champions League. But yeah, they also don't play the same style. They had this like nice fluid dynamic 3-back going on. They had like a unique style of play, really played it. Now that they're playing this traditional 4-3-3, they've lost every sense of uniqueness, unfortunately. And I think that's what's causing them issues. I hope they don't go down so that they can stay in the Bundesliga and try to regain some of that, build again, and show us a little bit of what they were doing. As far as Dortmund, you mentioned them quickly. I just don't think they're good enough. I don't know. Like on paper, their team seems like mixed match. It doesn't seem solid. I know, Pat. I'll give you a chance to weigh in on this. I know, obviously, the rumors around in the mill or that Sancho are going to be coming to Dortmund. Is that confirmed? I don't think so, right?
It's
practically there.
So they haven't. United hasn't given them the green light.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what he wants.
Yeah.
So I'd expect them to give it to him, because they're not just gonna have him sit on the bench and train with the youth and all that. So I'm expecting him to go by the end of the window.
All right. So yeah, I think it's really difficult for Dortmund. It was always going to be difficult, I think, to recover from that hangover of losing the way they did. Like I said, replacing Jude Bellingham was always going to be an impossible task. But I mean, you got to be licking your lips at that price tag. I don't know how you can look at that and see a guy who's scored and contributed to the amount of goals he has at this point in the season and not snatch that up immediately. So I think the Man Uniteds of the world, the Chelseas of the world, the Arsenals of the world, even all those teams that are looking for a number 9 and really desperately need one, they should all be looking at Sergio Girassi right now. And if Stuttgart loses him, I mean that's like 40% of their goals out of the team right there. So I think that's going to make their bid to stay in the automatic Champions League places very, very difficult from that point on.
Yeah, it'll make or break their season, like you said. I mean, a guy with 17 goals walks away from the team, they're not going to win as many. That's just how it is.
No.
They'll roll out of Europe very, very quickly if they lose them. So we'll see.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's just a lot of interesting little storylines, like Andrew's mentioning, in the league. And at the end of the day, I want to see Leverkusen win. I almost kind of like, as much as I said I want Kane to win a trophy, I almost kind of want Bayern to not win the league, just because I'm kind of
Me too.
I'm kind of sick of also them like taking every other club in Germany's best player for the most part and just adding it to their collection. You know what I mean? And I think that
Right.
it's almost justice is being done, because now like you have Guerrero, Upamecano, Limer, like, and a couple other players. I mean, throughout the years, that all just come from the other clubs that compete for the Bundesliga, and now they're just sitting on Bayern's squad. So honestly, I kind of hope they fall, and I hope like Leverkusen are able to do it.
Imagine they go and get Mukiele too. A nice little Leipzig product again.
Right.
Open Meccano and Mukiele right next to each other. Once again with Limer in front of them. It'll be like torture.
Speaking of them buying all the talent, I actually read today that they want to sign Wirtz in the summer.
I'm not surprised.
That would be gross.
That would
be disgusting. That would be an absolute disgrace.
I was literally
if they pulled that off.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that I wouldn't be surprised if Frimpong, Grimaldo, or Wirtz are in Bayern rumors by January 31st. But
yeah,
well, it remains to be seen. Let's just do just do a fast one. Let's just throw some names out there. Obviously, I think goalkeeper. I mean, I'll let you just go for it, but I think goalkeeper is one of
easy shout. It's got to be Herdecki for Leverkusen. I think he's been great. I mean, just quickly, I think he's not really a goalkeeper that's been very rated in the Bundesliga. I've always respected him. I thought he's been great, and he's showing his quality this season. I think he's exactly what Xabi Alonso needed back there, somebody to really be calm and instill confidence in that back line, especially considering how young they are. So I think it's an easy shot for him.
Yeah, I think he's a consistent keeper. I think he's not one that's going to be the best in the league, but he's always a shout for 2, 3, 4. Do you know what I mean?
He's always going to get the job done.
Yeah.
Always gonna make the saves. Always gonna answer the question. So he does everything you ask of him. I don't think you can ask for much more of a goalkeeper, especially being where they are on the table. So
yeah, I personally don't think we have to go too far in a club to pick a defender unless someone has a different shout. But I think it's
I think this team almost picks itself. It's gonna have to be one of Grimaldo or Frimpong. I think I lean Grimaldo. I hate to just say that it's because of like the one extra goal contribution, but I think it's super fair to have Grimaldo in the team.
I think
I was going to ask how you classify them as a position.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're wing backs. I think they're defenders.
I agree.
Okay. They play such a weird up and down style that I almost inflated to take a center back and put one of those guys in midfield.
I was thinking that as well. And the reason why I won't do it is because I consider my midfield pick, who I guess will move to midfield, Florian Wirtz, to be an actual attacking midfielder, not a forward or second striker. So I think he would take the midfield spot, in my opinion. What do you guys think?
I like Grimaldo for the defender, personally. I think the only reason I'll give it to him over Frimpong, as much as I absolutely love watching Frimpong play, is because this is Grimaldo's first season in the Bundesliga. I mean, the adjustment he's made in the 6 months from Benfica to Leverkusen is nothing short of outstanding. So I think he's an easy shot.
Takes a lot of the set pieces too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Set piece specialist.
Yeah, I think Grimaldo favors over Frimpong just because Pat's whole distinction of where they play. I think Grimaldo's the truer defender of the two anyway to lead towards the defender position. And then with Wirtz being classified as a midfielder, it also tends to the fact that I think there's also such a good, I think 2 shouts, maybe even 3 for the striker, even though I think I just want to give it to Kane myself. But I think
it's tough.
I think it's
There's
tough.
A couple snubs.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it has to be Kane at forward and Victor Boniface in the flex, which I think snubs Guirassy, and unfortunately is going to snub Frimpong as well. But that's the 5 for me. It's a very heavy Leverkusen team, rightfully so. I mean, when you're invincible up until this point, I think it's only right. Any arguments for anybody else?
I agree. I mean, I think it's like the Serie A. I mean, it could be, or like even La Liga. I mean, it really could be a full Leverkusen team. They certainly have put in the performances to do that. So, but I think our team is great there. I like Harry Kane as the striker and Boniface as the flex.
Yeah, I like Boniface as a flex too, because even though Guirassy technically has a higher goal and assist by one, it all comes from goals. So to give a striker credit where it's due, the fact that he can create and score nearly double digits in both categories is a couple off. Is impressive, I think.
I'm disagreeing.
Okay.
I think I think Leverkusen's top of the league for a reason, and I think they've shown it without Mr. Boniface himself. So I as much as I do agree he's had a great season, I do think that Guirassy should be in over him because
nice.
if Stuttgart did not have Guirassy, they would not be even close to sniffing that.
It.
Okay.
I like it.
Like we just saw, Patrick Schick have a hat trick in a game where Boniface came off the bench and he still scored.
Yeah,
so that's
you'd argue
for it just because they have a better all-around team and he's not the most integral part, as we mentioned. Ronaldo, Frimpong, Hurts. So
right, and you'd say Guirassy is more important to Stuttgart. Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah,
I think you won me over.
In my opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll take that argument. We made that argument in different leagues, so yeah, I think I agree. I'll take it.
Nice.
And to wrap things off with a league that I don't think any of us really rate too highly, but it is a top 5 league nonetheless. Ligue 1. Is it just going to be PSG again? Is there just no one else that can compete in Ligue 1?
Probably. For a little while, it was seeming like Nice might do the unthinkable and win. It's pretty cool that we have this kind of underdog story in all of the top leagues, other than really the Serie A. I think Nice is kind of our Girona, Leverkusen, Villa type of team. I know they're Italian, led by Fairoli. We'll see if he gets a move to the Serie A. I might want to see him on the bench of Milan one day. But there's some fun stories in Liga, some things that I've kept my eye on. Brest being in 4th place is kind of crazy. They were a team who kind of bounced up and down between League 2 and League. They're usually in the bottom half of the table. It's cool to see them in the top 4. I think Marseille and Lille are punching below their weight. Marseille have a pretty strong side, in my opinion. They put in some really good performances in the Europa League. They had a tough group with Brighton and Ajax. I particularly enjoyed watching their games. Lens are a little lower than I'd like them to be, but they had a lot. Their team kind of got picked apart, and I'm not sure that they replaced everyone too well. And then the further down the table you go, the more surprising it gets, because I think Lyon in 15th, now they have gotten out of the relegation zone. I know when we first started the podcast, they were in it, and they were just starting to pick up form. So they're 4 games unbeaten in a row. I know one of them came in the cup. So I'm looking forward to them. They should have a better second half of the season, and it sucks to see Toulouse all the way down there. They were the French Cup winners. They had a pretty special season last year. They're also in Europe and finding it quite tough. They found themselves in a group with Liverpool and USG, but I think they advanced, right?
They did. They're in the conference.
Yeah, they play Benfica.
So who knows? Maybe. That's right. Oh, that's right. Yeah, so I'm sure they'll make a run at it. I mean, Benfica are a tough team, but if they can't get past Benfica, I'm sure their league form will improve. Any storylines that you guys want to highlight, or
I want to point out Nice. Nice is sitting only 5 points from PSG with 19 goals scored.
They don't score and they don't concede.
And dude, it's almost like they didn't play these games. Like none of us are Nice fans, but as a Nice fan, are you going to these games like happy? Like, are you content? Are you bored out of your mind? Like
maybe we'll see him on the bench of Juventus. He looks like a little 1-0 specialist himself. That would suck.
I wrote down in my notes when I saw that they have 19 goals for and 19 against. I wrote that down with a question mark next to it because I was like, "What the hell is going on here?" But they do have the far and away best defensive record in League One. They have 11 clean sheets in 17 games, which is nothing to discount at all. So it's probably one of the best, if not the best, in Europe. So they have a couple interesting players too. I think Terra Murphy's one to watch out for, who they actually just lost now to AFCON. But it's going to be interesting to see what he does when he comes back. Other than that, for League One, like you said, I think Brest is a great shout. They're an interesting team. I think they're having the greatest season in the club's history right now. So that's pretty cool to see that they're punching up there and in the European places and in the Champions League spot right now. They are in the spot that gets them in the qualification playoffs. So it'll be interesting to see what they can do. They have a 5-point gap over Lille, who are in 5th. So, like you said, it's awesome to see that. I mean, Kamori Doumbia has 5 goals and 2 assists on the season, which, I mean, is pretty cool from midfield. They're another team that doesn't really score a lot, but he scored 4 of those goals all in one game in the first half against Montpellier. Actually, the last round before Christmas. So that was interesting to see. And other than that, I mean, yeah, Marseille, like you said, they're kind of struggling. I think Gattuso is actually doing well to turn things around there. Yeah,
it's League One.
It's League One. It's League One. The story kind of writes itself out there. But I think the relegation scrap is going to be the most interesting story in League One because only 5 points separates 10th from the relegation playoffs. So,
yeah,
I mean, a couple tough results for a team in 10th place, and you're right down there amongst the dogs. So, it's going to be interesting to keep an eye on there, and I hope Lyon continue in this fashion because, like you said, Angelo, they were bottom when we started this podcast, and 3 wins on the bounce has got them completely out of the relegation zone. So big ups to them. Hopefully they can continue doing that.
Yeah, and you are muted before you got going crazy.
Good looks. Yeah, you bring up the relegation fight. Something interesting. I don't know if you guys saw this. This is a sneaky a sneaky move that happened. If not today, it was yesterday. Mets got their talisman back on loan from Ajax. Now, if you're not familiar with George, I'm gonna give my best shot at pronounce his last name, Mikawadze. He absolutely
from Georgia, right?
From Georgian striker, ripped League Two last year. Was never ever gonna stay. Got his move to Ajax and has not played at all. And that's with Ajax being as bad as they were at the beginning of the season. They got him back on loan. So we'll see if he can rekindle his form that he had before he left France. Lyon and Toulouse might be in trouble. I don't know. I mean, they're lucky that there's only 2 relegation spots. I can't speak much on Clermont Foot and Lorient. I know Lorient lost some good players. They had that's who actually had Terra Murphy, and they bought him. Nice bought him midway through last season, and they began to struggle, and it looks like the struggle has continued. So I don't know. It's gonna be interesting because I mean, there's not too many games in Liga, only being 18 teams. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, and you know what? Like, I personally don't like PSG as a club, and I know a lot of us don't. But I don't know if we saw that video of Mbappe ripping the trophy when they won. I think they.
Yeah, it was very strange.
Yeah, and then like the players weren't even celebrating. It's it's for a team that like at least Bayern they won the Bundesliga for so long, but like every time they win it, it's like beers flying. You know what I mean? There's a lot of energy there. At least they have fun with it still, and it looks like this whole PSG squad is just bored and just unenthusiastic, and it's just I hate it.
It's funny that you just called it the Bayern by accident.
Yeah,
because they may as well rename it that, right?
Yeah,
I mean, shit.
The Bayern Liga,
Yeah.
but yeah, honestly, PSG just seem unenthusiastic. So I just want to see them drop points. I hope Nice do something crazy.
I thought that was disgraceful from Mbappe, honestly. I mean, like, the guy's just getting paid, helping the team out, helping the state. I mean, like, that's just, you're a professional athlete. You can't do that to the staff, man. That was, I didn't like to see that at all.
Mm-hmm.
I guess it just goes to show maybe some of the stuff that we've been hearing about Mbappe in the locker room behind the scenes is, coming to light. So, I like Mbappe. He's a good player, but, I mean, man, that was very arrogant of him to do. I didn't really appreciate that.
Yeah. A really rapid 5-a-side from Ligue 1. I think Nice's goalkeeper. How do you feel?
Yeah, easy.
Easy shout.
Yeah, Marcin
No doubts about
Bulka,
that.
I believe it's pronounced. As far as defenders, I mean, probably a Nice defender as well, unless someone else has a shout.
I got
You go.
Dante.
Yeah, I had a
Can
name
you go, Dante?
to shout out as well. If it's not Donch, it's probably going to be Jean-Claire Todibo, who might not finish the season as a Nice player. He's been a name that's been heavily linked to a lot of the big clubs. So I'm all right with giving it to Dante. Crazy, he's been around. He's been around,
A long
Yeah.
time.
man, forever. He was in those Bayern teams too.
Dude,
Yeah, I
nerdy
think
stuff.
Dante
That's
because he
FIFA
fits the bill.
something, dude.
So
Streets will never forget
Yeah.
Dante.
Dude, that's like FIFA 14 throwback. That's some crazy stuff.
Yeah, there was another defender actually I wanted to shout out real quick before we move. Wilfred Singo, I think he's had a pretty impressive season over at Monaco. I know
love him
Angelo is
so
a
much.
lover of Wilfred Singo. So I think a move to Monaco really wasn't what I was expecting for him
No, me either.
coming out of the Serie A, but he's definitely proved it was worth the move for him. So I think he deserves at least a shout out.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely. I think for midfield, one person I'll throw out there, like I said, even though I don't like PSG, they are in first place. Maybe because he's a Portuguese, but Vitinha, I think, has been pretty good for PSG this season, putting up some numbers for the team. I don't know if anybody else has something to say, contribute there, name to throw out there.
I wanted
Yeah,
to shout out Kang In Lee. I think he's making a name for himself. Kind of underrated player, the Korean kid. He's playing pretty good, man. I'm impressed with him. Never heard of him, and then started watching him play a little bit, a couple games here and there, and he's impressed me a little bit. I actually kind of like the way he plays, so I just wanted to give him a little flower there.
I think the PSG midfielder that's actually impressed me the most out of all of them is the youngest one, Warren Zaire-Emery. I think he's been absolutely fantastic in every game that I've seen him play for PSG this season, be it in League One or in the Champions League. He never looks out of his depth. He looks like he's right at home in this midfield, and I mean, for a kid to be at 17 years of old, dictating play in the way that he does, and just the amount of composure he displays, he's contributing to goals and assists now too. So, I mean, I think the sky is only upwards from here for Zaire Emery. So, I think he's my shout for best midfielder so far.
I actually had a couple names from the Brest side that I wanted to show love to, and I can't say that I've watched the Brest game this season because that would be a lie, and I try not to lie. But two names that I've heard a lot about, performances of Pierre Lesmelot and Romain Del Castillo. They're always popping up in the So Rare Matrix, scoring well, although I don't think their cards are in the game, which is unfortunate. But those are two performers that have done really well. Del Castillo, to highlight, has 5 goals, 5 assists from midfield. I'm sure he's an engine and makes that Brest team tick, and is a big reason why they're in the top 4. But it's unfortunate that I can't really speak to their performances. If I had to pick a PSG center midfielder, I mean, I guess I'd be on board with Zaire Emery just because I've actually watched a lot of his games, mostly because of the Champions League. But it's tough to say. I can't say I'm an expert.
Yeah, I think I lean.
I'm actually okay with Vitinha too, to be honest. I like him.
He's great.
Yeah, I like the 2 PSG picks. I mean, one last name I'll throw out there, but even though I'm still leaning PSG, is Minamino has had a good season.
Okay, I was gonna say him as well. He slipped my mind.
Yeah, you know, he went to Liverpool after having a great time at Salzburg, and it was neither here nor there. But I think he's really starting to pull some weight at Monaco right now in this season. But
yeah.
Will we stick with Vitinha, or we want to do with Zaire Emery?
Just stick with Vitinha.
Yeah, Vitinha is fine, and I think we're gonna have his teammate here shortly added to the team, right, at forward.
At forward, it has to be. Despite my displeasure with his attitude and professionalism, he is an unbelievable forward.
Yep.
Talent-wise.
Yep. Picks himself. And then for the flex, I would like to take Jean-Claire Todibo. I think when you play 17 games and concede 9, They've only conceded 2 goals at home this season as well. I think it'd be nice to have a little Nice defensive stack. I think that would fare well for us.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah, I'm not upset with that. The
Well,
only other
if
names.
any of the five-a-sides deserve 2 defenders, I think it's this one for Nice's performances so far this season.
Yeah, fully agree. The only other contention for me was the 2 midfielders we had talked about in Minamino or Zaire Emery, but I think I'm not bad with Todibo.
I wanted to shout out Aubameyang too because
he has been playing good.
Yeah,
There's
absolutely.
a spark going on, so just wanted to shout out the Gabon international himself.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Put a ball on it, Nate.
Put a ball on it. Yeah, I think there's a couple other leagues around Europe that if you're a soccer nerd, go check out. I think the Belgian league, me and Angela talking about it. And the Eredivisie is interesting without Ajax at the top of the table. So definitely for all the nerds out there, check out some games in those. Take a screenshot of the league now, see how it changes. Let us know how you guys feel about all of our 5-a-sides, all of our predictions for the top of the table, who's going down. If you have any great shouts, let us know. We'd love to hear some crazy stuff. If you have any stats, facts, and figures, we love all that. But again, just another week, and I hope everybody has a great week and keeps on being a son.